Madame Koko had waited for years to hear the cry of a baby in her home. She prayed, fasted, and visited different hospitals, but the years passed and she remained childless. Then, at last, after many years, her prayers were answered. A son was born to her and her husband, Okon. They named him Akan. But just when she thought her joy would last forever, tragedy struck. Okon, her beloved husband, fell ill. Doctors could not save him. In less than 3 months, he was gone. Koko, barely in her 30s, was left all alone to raise their son. Her heart ached, but she had no choice. She had to be strong for Akan. Life was difficult. She had no stable job, no savings, and no family to turn to. She tried her best, selling food by the roadside, washing clothes for rich women, and even working as a cleaner. But it was never enough. The city of Calabar was harsh to the poor. She feared she would lose everything, even Akan. One evening, after a long day of selling akara by the roadside, Koko met a woman named Madame Ife. Ife was rich, very rich. She drove a big car and wore expensive lace and gold jewelry. When Ife stopped to buy akara, she watched Koko closely. "You work so hard, my sister," Ife said, "yet you struggle so much. Do you not want more?" Koko sighed. "Of course I want more. I want my son to have a good life." Ife leaned in and whispered, "Come and see me tomorrow. I can help you." That meeting changed Koko's life forever. When Koko visited Madame Ife the next day, she was welcomed into a luxurious home filled with expensive furniture and golden decorations. Koko had never seen such wealth up close. He first served her a meal of jollof rice, chicken, and fresh fruit juice. It was a kind of hospitality Koko had not experienced in years. "Koko," Ife said after they ate, "you don't have to suffer like this. You're a hard-working woman, but hard work alone is not enough in this world." Koko listened closely. "I don't understand, Madame Ife." Ife smiled knowingly. "There is a group of women in this city who help each other. We control businesses, own land, and have powerful connections. But we don't rely on luck. We make things happen for ourselves." Koko was intrigued, but cautious. "What do I have to do?" "You must be willing to make sacrifices," Ife said. "Nothing comes for free. But if you join us, you will never know poverty again." Koko hesitated. Her instinct told her that there was more to this than Madame Ife was revealing. "What kind of sacrifices?" she asked. Ife leaned forward. "Loyalty, obedience, and an understanding that some parts require deep commitment." Koko looked around the beautiful house, the wealth, the ease with which Ife lived. She thought of Akan, of his future. She thought of the humiliation of begging for work, of struggling to feed her child. He had sacrificed so much in life. What was more sacrifice if it meant securing her son's future? With a deep breath, she nodded. "I'm ready." That night, Koko was taken to a secret meeting of wealthy women Ife had spoken about. The room was filled with powerful figures, women who owned markets, controlled trade routes, and had influence in government offices. They welcomed her, but it was clear that the membership came at a price. Over the next few months, Koko was slowly drawn deeper into their world. She was given money, connections, and opportunities. She opened her first shop, then another, and another. She imported goods from Lagos, Abuja, and even Ghana. People marveled at how quickly she rose from nothing to wealth. They whispered about her surging fortune, but no one dared to question her openly. With her newfound wealth, she moved to a bigger house, hired workers, and provided Akan with the best education. But she also learned that the power was a dangerous thing. The women she now associated with were ruthless. They had enemies and they protected themselves fiercely. Koko had become one of them, and she knew there was no turning back. As the years passed, Akan grew up in a home of luxury. He never knew the struggle his mother had faced. To him, life was easy and wealth was normal. But Koko, deep inside, carried a secret burden. He had everything she had ever wished for, but at what cost? And would Akan ever understand the sacrifices she had made for him? Akan grew into a fine young man. He was intelligent, handsome, and charming. He had everything going for him: money, success, and an easy charm that made him the center of attention wherever he went. His mother adored him and prayed for him every day. She wanted him to marry, to have children who would fill their home with laughter. But Akan had other plans. With his good looks and wealth, he became the most desirable bachelor in town. Women loved him and he loved them too. Too much. He basked in their attention, never staying with one woman for too long. His name was whispered in beauty salons, at wedding receptions, in university hostels too. Women fought over him, and some swore he had cast a spell on them. But Akan did not care. He enjoyed life and refused to settle down. It started subtle at first. A child here, a child there. A casual affair that ended with a pregnancy. He would send money, offer support, but he never stayed. Commitment was a word he did not understand. His friends envied him, calling him the boy is good. It was not a name of honor, but one of mockery. At first, Madame Koko ignored the rumors. My son is young, she told herself. He is enjoying life, but he will settle down. But the whispers grew louder. More women knocked on her door, carrying children who looked like Akan. It was no longer just a phase, it was a pattern, a dangerous one. She pleaded with him. You must marry, Akan. You need a wife and a family. But Akan would only laugh. Mama, I have many families everywhere. One evening, he came home late from a party. He was slightly drunk, his shirt unbuttoned, smelling of perfume. Madame Koko waited for him in the living room. The moment he walked in, she spoke. Akan, sit down. He sighed, knowing what was coming. Mama, not tonight. Tonight. Her voice was firm. He sat reluctantly. She looked at him for a long time, as if searching for a little boy she had once cradled in her arms. I did not suffer in this life to raise a reckless man, she said quietly. Mama, I take care of my children. I send money. What else do you want me to do? She shook her head. Money does not raise a child, Akan. Love does. Presence does. He waved her off. Mama, times have changed. Not everyone has to marry. Some of these women don't even want marriage. They are fine. They are fine, she repeated bitterly. Do you know what it means for a child to grow up fatherless? To see their mother struggle alone? Akan sighed impatiently. Mama, I have work to do tomorrow. She watched him get up and stagger towards his room. A deep sadness filled her chest. He had prayed for his son, fought for him, giving him the world. But now, he feared he had failed him, and worse, he had failed himself. Madame Coco's wealth could not buy her peace. Each time she closed her eyes, she saw the faces of the children Akan had left behind. Children growing up without a father's love. One day, a woman named Essie arrived at her shop. She carried a little boy in her arms. This is Akan's son, she said with anger in her eyes. Tell him to take responsibility. Madame Koko was stunned. She took a long look at the child, his eyes, his nose, even the way he pouted. It was as if she was staring at a younger version of Akan. Her heart sank. The next week, another woman came. Then another. Even one carried a child that bore a striking resemblance to her son. The weight of it all crushed Madame Koko. Every new arrival was another blow to her heart. How had Akan allowed this to happen? She felt sick, weak with worry. Her once strong body could no longer carry the burden of shame and disappointment. She could barely sleep at night, tormented by thoughts of those fatherless children. She confronted Akan one evening as he strolled into the house whistling a tune. Akan, how many more? She asked, her voice trembling. How many more children will come to this house looking for their father? Akan sighed, clearly irritated. Mama, I've told you, I will take care of them. Taking care of them is not just about sending money, Akan, she shouted, tears streaming down her face. These children need their father. They need love, guidance, a home. You have scattered your blood across this land like seeds in the wind, with no thought of how they will grow. Akan rolled his eyes. Mama, I don't need this tonight. Madame Koko grabbed his arm. You will listen, she said firmly. I did not suffer. I did not go through every night, everything, just to raise a careless man. You are breaking my heart, Akan. You are breaking it into pieces. For the first time, Akan saw the deep sorrow in his mother's eyes. The woman who had sacrificed everything for him now looked frail, wounded, as if her soul itself was crying. A wave of guilt swept over him, but he pushed it aside. He was not ready to face the truth. That night, Madame Koko wept bitterly in her room. She had dreamt of grandchildren filling her house with joy, but not like this. Not through pain and abandonment. She feared for the future. She feared for her son's soul. One rainy evening, Akan was driving home when he saw a boy by the roadside. The child was crying, his clothes soaked with rain. Akan stopped and stepped out of his car. "Why are you alone?" he asked. The boy sniffled. "I live here with my mother, but she is sick. She cannot move." Akan followed the boy into a small dark room. There, on a mat, lay a woman he recognized immediately. Amaka, one of the women he had been with. She was weak, barely breathing. A small baby lay beside her. "Is this my child?" Akan asked in a whisper. Amaka nodded slowly. "Yes, and he's not the only one." In that moment, something inside Akan broke. He had been living carelessly, thinking only of pleasure. But here was the truth. His actions had consequences. He rushed Amaka to the hospital, but it was too late. He passed away, leaving him with 2 children to care for. Akan took the children home. Madam Koko wept when she saw them. "These are your blood," she said. "You must do better." For the first time, Akan saw the pain he had caused, not just to these children, but to all the others. He searched for them one by one and took responsibility. He found the mothers and tried to right his wrongs. It was not easy. Some women refused his help, others cursed him, but slowly he started to change. One day, Akan met a woman named Nkem. She was different from the others, wise, gentle, and full of dignity. Unlike the woman who fell easily for his charm, Nkem was unimpressed by his wealth and fame. She challenged him in ways he had never experienced before. Akan found himself drawn to her. But for the first time in his life, he realized that he was not enough for someone like her. He made it clear that she wanted a man who valued family, responsibility, and commitment. Qualities Akan had ignored for years. Then tragedy struck. One of his sons, a boy named Etim, who had grown up without a father's presence, was involved in a violent gang fight. The boy had turned to the street for guidance because his father was absent. Akan rushed to the hospital when he heard the news, but it was too late. His son was gone. The pain of losing Etim shattered him. He saw the grief in the eyes of the boy's mother, the anger in the faces of his other children, and the deep disappointment in his mother's heart. Madam Koko had warned him, pleaded with him, but he had refused to listen. Now, he was paying the price. For the first time, Akan felt true regret. That night, he locked himself in his room and wept. He thought of the many children he had abandoned, the women he had left to struggle alone. He realized that money could not replace love, nor could it erase the scars of absence. In the days that followed, he changed. He reached out to his children, seeking forgiveness. Some welcomed him, while others shut him out. He did not blame them. He knew trust had to be rebuilt. Slowly, he made amends, providing not just financial support, but also emotional presence. He married Nkem, and together they worked to restore what was broken. Madame Koko watched her son transform. Her prayers had finally been answered, but at a great cost. She had lost a grandson, but perhaps she had gained a wiser son. Years passed, and Akan became a devoted husband and father. He raised his children with love, teaching them the lesson he had learned the hard way. He worked tirelessly to ensure none of his children ever lacked guidance or affection. He mended broken relationships, making peace with the mothers of his children. Some forgave him, others did not. But he remained committed to being a responsible father. Madame Koko, now old but content, watched her grandchildren play. The house was always filled with their laughter, the sound of little feet running through the halls. She felt peace in her heart, knowing that Akan had truly changed. One evening, as the sun set over Calabar, Madame Koko sat outside, watching Akan with his children. He held the youngest in his arms, telling stories of his youth. She smiled and whispered, "My prayers have been answered." Akan looked at his mother and held her hand. "Mama, thank you for never giving up on me." Tears filled her eyes as she nodded. Life had given us another chance, my son. Cherish it. As the stars lit up the night sky, Akan knew that his journey had come full circle. He had made mistakes, but he had also learned, grown, and redeemed himself. And in the end, that was all that mattered. Now, lesson to take from this story. Number 1, the consequences of choices. Every decision we make, good or bad, had consequences that shape our future. The dangers of wealth without morality. Madame Koko gained wealth through questionable means, but it could not buy her peace. Parental influence matters. Parents must guide their children wisely to prevent them from making mistakes that could ruin lives. The importance of responsibility. Akan's careless lifestyle hurt many, but taking responsibility helped him find redemption. Second chances exist. No matter how far we stray, there is always an opportunity to change and make things right. True love brings transformation. Love, patience, and understanding can help people become better versions of themselves. And finally, family is more than blood. True family comes from love, commitment, and the willingness to stand by each other through difficult times. The end. I hope you've enjoyed this story. Please like, share, and subscribe. Bye.